Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Katie Merrill. I'm the Director of Admissions at Vermont Law School. Vermont Law School is a small independent law school nestled in the Green Mountains, which are still a little white from snow. So we're happy to have you. We're an advocate-based school. We're nationally known for our environmental law program. It's one of the best in the country. And we're also known for being a national law school. And what that means is 90% of our students come from out of state and then they practice across the country. I am actually from Utah/California. If you want to go ahead and pop in the chat where you're from, that would be great. We always like to see where everybody's from. We are committed to creating a generation of leaders that make a difference in their communities. And through our programs, we're happy to achieve that. So this evening, I'm really excited to introduce to you our Animal Law and Policy Institute and our leading members. I'm going to do a brief introduction and then I'm going to pass them on. I'd like to introduce Laura Ireland. She's the program coordinator and she's also has decades and decades of taking care of animals and advocating. I'd also like to introduce Bailey Soderberg. Did I say that right, Bailey? Bailey is 2L or 3L? Yep. Okay. Bailey's a 2L and making a difference here on campus. And for those of you who are applying to Vermont Law, I just read her personal statement again, just to get a fresh feel, and it was wonderful, informative, and she's doing actually what she set out to do in law school. Last but not least, I'm proud to introduce our director of our Animal Law and Policy Institute, Delcy Winters, who is incredible, a leader and a change maker, and we are so lucky to have her, and we're so lucky because our program is growing. So happy to introduce her. And I'm just going to make a small plug. If you want to come visit Vermont Law, please do. You're going to see Vanessa, who's coming in. She's an admitted student. So if you see someone who pops in, she's brand new to VLS. So, all right. I think that's all I have to say. And I'm going to pass it on to Delcy.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you everyone who's joining us. And if you're here because you're considering pursuing a career in animal law, we are very excited about that. But we're especially excited that you are considering doing it here at Vermont Law School. So what I want to share a little bit about this evening is why Vermont Law School is such a truly unique and special place to be doing animal law. I've been teaching in a variety of settings, including here at Vermont Law School in the summer program since 2018, but it was only over the summer that I joined the faculty full-time to launch and direct the new Animal Law and Policy Institute, which we were able to create thanks to a number of generous donors, including the Brooks Institute for Animal Rights, Law and Policy. And as Katie mentioned, I serve as the director and Laura serves as the program coordinator, which I'm so grateful to have. I wouldn't be able to do it without Laura. And Laura is very modest, but she founded the National Center for Animal Law at Lewis and Clark Law School more than 2 decades ago. She established the National Animal Advocacy competitions, which we're discussing with some collaborators, reviving. She also practiced animal law and directed a shelter for more than a decade. So she's a tremendous asset to our program and a mentor for our students as well. As for me, I went to law school specifically to practice animal law. And that's what I've been doing for 15 years. And I've been teaching animal law for almost as long. So after clerking for a federal court of appeals judge, I started my career out at a small award-winning public interest law firm in Washington, D.C., where I did entirely animal law and a pretty wide range of types of cases. So I was involved in suing industrial wind power plants that were siting their turbines in known migratory bird pathways and endangered bat pathways. I litigated a Freedom of Information Act case, which went to trial, very rare for a FOIA case, around documents of animal abuse by Huntington Life Sciences, a contract research organization that the USDA wanted to keep secret. We were successful in getting those disclosed. I also worked on a number of farmed animal matters and captive wildlife matters, dog matters, a pretty wide range, like I said, but got to develop a bit of an expertise in elephants, including working on a matter that led to the first ever seizure of an elephant in the United States, and a very high profile Endangered Species Act case against Ringling Brothers for its abuse of endangered Asian elephants, which we had a 6-week-long trial for. So I was part of the small trial team, and we brought to light a tremendous amount of really troubling evidence. From there, I went on to become the director of legal campaigns for Farm Sanctuary, which is a leading farmed animal protection organization. And I worked on ballot initiatives challenging intensive confinement. So gestation crates that breeding pigs are kept in, veal crates, and battery cages where egg-laying hens don't even have room to spread their wings. And a lot of work on behalf of downed animals who are too sick to stand or walk, including work on a Supreme Court case looking at the question of whether states had the ability to regulate to protect downed animals, or if that was preempted by federal law. And then I went to the PETA Foundation, where I spent almost a decade, and I established their captive animal law enforcement division, which was is still to this day, a team of lawyers, veterinarians, scientists, and support staff advocating for bears, chimpanzees, elephants, lions, tigers, and other captive wild animals who are exploited for entertainment. So my team and I were monitoring Joe Exotic and Jeff Lowe and Doc Antle and Mario Tabrue and Tim Stark long before Tiger King put them on the nation's radar. And if you don't know their names, I envy you. When Doc Antle wanted to export 18 tigers to Mexico for a film project more than 5 years ago, we successfully opposed that. Working with the PETA Foundation's litigation team, we brought an Endangered Species Act lawsuit against Tim Stark, and were able to transfer 25 big cats from Stark as well as Jeff Lowe to Sanctuary. And while I was there, we actually were able to rehome well over 100 bears, chimpanzees, big cats, and Nosy, very special elephant. You might see the photos of her behind me. I was able to personally accompany her to Sanctuary and found my dog Lovey on the way. So sometimes you rescue more animals than you intended to. So I just want to share some of these experiences to give you an idea of the breadth of types of work you can do in animal law and different organizations. And really, this is just skimming the surface. This is just me, just one person. There are a lot of other pathways. And so I will mention some of the other things our animal law alumni are doing as well. But most recently, before joining the faculty at Vermont Law School, I was on the faculty at Lewis and Clark Law School, where I established the Animal Law Litigation Clinic. I have also been a fellow at Harvard Law School, a visiting scholar at the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University, and I've taught at Tulane and Loyola New Orleans as well. And so I've had experiences at a lot of different law schools. And I can honestly say that Vermont Law School is different from all of them. I have never been at a more collaborative institution. I have never been at such a mission-driven school where all of our students and our faculty and our staff are here because they want to be change makers, and they're supporting each other in their individual pathways to further their advocacy missions. So our motto is law for the community and the world, and we really mean it, and we include animals in the community and the world. It's also incredibly friendly and supportive environment. The faculty is accessible to the students. I think Bailey can attest to that. We are here for each other and above all else for our students. Who've come here not to make money, but because they want to advocate for something they believe in very deeply, including animal law. So they may also be interested in restorative justice, environmental justice, food justice. Increasingly, we're seeing students who want to meld those issues with animal law. And given our leadership in those spaces and our collaborative colleagues, there's space to do that here. We're well known as a top-ranked environmental law school and as a leader in the restorative justice space. It's less known, our long history in animal law. So I'm going to briefly give you a little overview of that, because it didn't just start with me 6-7 months ago. More than 3 decades ago, Vermont Law School was one of the very first schools anywhere to offer an animal law course. And our growth has been steady since then. Over the years, we've grown to now have 10 curriculum committee approved animal law classes. And that's student driven. This has all, as is the case with animal law in a lot of places, the students are pushing for this and we're listening to the students. Our Animal Law Society, which is a chapter of the Animal Legal Defense Fund, has been active for decades. They have an amazing vegan Thanksgiving potluck that has been going on for more than 25 years. They've won a student chapter award from the Animal Legal Defense Fund. They have a host of other events, including a symposium coming up on March 25th, which will be virtual. So you might want to, I'll mention some more details about that later, but I would stay tuned for that. But most recently, we've launched an animal law concentration, which lets students demonstrate for potential employers a consistent course of study in animal law. It requires 14 credits in animal law, including a core course and an experiential or writing credit that's animal law focused. Some of the classes that we have, I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have the Law of Animals in Agriculture, which is focused on farmed animals and taught by my colleague, Pamela Vesland. Animal Law and Ethics, taught by my colleague, Professor Reed Loader. I teach Animals in the Law, which is a survey course offered once a year. I'm currently teaching an animal law practicum, which Bailey is in, and that is giving students the opportunity to work on real life matters on behalf of clients. And I can't go into too many details about what we're working on because of client confidences, but I can share we're working on a wide range of issues, including local cruelty investigation, training the Vermont Police Academy in animal cruelty investigations, working with a local wildlife group on a particularly cruel form of hunting, working to tackle the deregulation of slaughter, and a number of other things. I'm also very, very, very excited to announce that in the fall, we will launch our Farmed Animal Advocacy Clinic. So we will have a dedicated clinic for animal law and specifically farmed animal law. So that will focus on improving the treatment and status of animals raised for food, but it will also emphasize the interconnected interests of animals, humans, and the environment while always centering animals. And students will take a leadership role in every step of their matters, including litigation, regulatory, legislative, and policy work. So students will directly be involved in everything from interviewing potential clients, drafting pleadings and other advocacy materials, working with experts, and potentially, depending on the procedural postures, appearing in court, arguing in court, testifying before legislative and administrative bodies. This is absolutely student-centered. So just to give you a feel for some potential clinic projects, it might be continuing the battle against the U.S. Department of Agriculture's deregulation of slaughter, furthering efforts to require industrial animal agriculture to internalize their costs that they've been allowed to externalize for a very long time, animal welfare costs, environmental costs, and so on. Spearheading policy initiatives to help farmers who are wanting to transition away from animal agriculture toward plant-based agriculture, lobbying for stronger legal protections for farmed animals, training those who are tasked with enforcing farmed animal protection laws, and so on. And so this is not just an amazing opportunity to hone advocacy skills through hands-on practice, but also to develop relationships with potential employers in this space. We also have a very strong summer session here at Vermont Law School. And as I said at the beginning, I've been teaching in that for a while. We've had animal law courses in that for a while, but we now have an animal law course during every single term, at least one animal law course. So this summer, among other things, we have an undercover investigations of animal operations course. We have animal ethics and conservation. And we have animal welfare law, which is an interdisciplinary course that I co-teach with a veterinarian. So we really dive into science, ethics, and the law and how those interact. And there's more. There's more coming very soon. So the Vermont Law School is in the process of implementing its strategic plan. And one of the elements of that is a new master's in animal protection policy program. We will be admitting our first class in fall 2023 in that program. And so like our other master's program, that can be something that can be done alongside a JD degree or as a freestanding degree in its own right. So I just finished a proposed curriculum map for that. So it's all very much underway. There are also a lot of extracurricular activities in animal law for our students. Like I mentioned before, we are collaborating with others to revive the national animal advocacy competitions, which include moot court appellate advocacy, closing arguments, and legislative drafting and lobbying. And I know our students are very excited about having this opportunity to hone their advocacy skills. I work with students on independent research projects related to animal law. They do publications, including journal articles and other types of publications, externships, and semesters in practice with animal protection organizations. So I'm going to hand it over to Bailey because she's one of our amazing animal law students, and she's doing most of those things or has done already. So I'm going to let her tell you what it's like to be an animal law student at Vermont Law School.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bailey Soderberg. I'm a 2L, and I'm also working towards my joint master's degree in environmental law and policy. I do wish that the animal law degree and master's degree was available when I came here, but I have enjoyed doing the master's degree classes for environmental law and policy as well. I have an animal law concentration. I'm also a staff editor on the Vermont Journal of Environmental Law, and I was just elected to notes editor for next year. I'm a member of the Animal Law Society. I'll be a future member of the Moot Court Board once I finish Advanced Appellate Advocacy this year. And then I'm also an environmental legal research assistant for the library here. So before law school, I actually didn't really realize that I wanted to go into the law. I always grew up loving animals, and I grew up on farms around horses. But I also really loved English. So I attended UMass Amherst for English and creative writing. And then while I was there, I think it was in 2016, I watched Cowspiracy, which is about 5 or 6 years ago. And I just went vegan overnight after watching that because I saw the effect that farming and how we treat animals has on our environment. But I didn't really know how to effectively be an advocate for those issues. So I kind of came out of college and then I ended up working as a paralegal in business immigration in Boston for 2 years. And then while I was there, my friend told me about VLS and the environmental law program and about how there were animal law classes. And I didn't actually know that an animal law concentration existed, but I just knew that I wanted to take those animal law classes and kind of see how you could use the law to help animals. And then actually at Vermont Law School, I've had really great experiences. The first year is definitely, for JDs at least, is doctrinal classes. So there wasn't a lot of exploration the first year because you're just learning like property. But then in the first summer after my first year, I got to take the MELP classes, and that's when I met Professor Winders. I took her animal welfare law class and the farmed animal law class with Professor Vesseland, and I loved both of them. And then after talking with Professor Winders, I realized that there's just so many opportunities in this field. And then I kind of also contacted her about being my supervisor on my note for VGEL, because you write a research paper. So I ended up working with her on a research paper about the legal status of animals, which I'm really excited about. And I feel like it was a great experience to just kind of really dig into how animals are treated in our legal system. And you can have the opportunities to do that in your classes, do different research papers about whatever areas of animal law interest you. And I also, during my summer with my MELP classes, I took other courses that were kind of tangentially related to animal issues, like ocean coastal law and environmental crimes as well. And then in my 2L year, I've taken constitutional animal law and also the Animals in the Law survey course that Professor Winders teaches. And then I've been able to use the research papers for those classes to do even further research on other areas. I did a research paper on seals. So I kind of have been able to do either wildlife or farmed animals or whatever area of the law that I want to in these classes for my research papers. I would say the reasons why I love the animal law program at VLS, overall, I think there's such a great community, and there's these different areas of VLS where there's professors who have such a great wealth of knowledge in different areas. So, and there's a lot of areas where animal law intersects with like environmental justice or like criminal justice reform or climate change. And if you have a question in one of your courses, like I'm taking natural resources law, and I've been bugging my professor in that class with questions because she's so knowledgeable about it. And though she doesn't focus on animal law, she does know so much about the Endangered Species Act. So I think the community is really great. And the professors are always willing to meet with you. Obviously, I meet with Professor Winters a lot and ask her all of my animal law questions. And it's really nice to know that there's a community of other people who have the same interest in animal law or animal interests in general that you do. Because I think I definitely felt very alone before VLS in, I guess, my compassion towards animals and trying to make a difference in their lives, and also kind of how connected they are to the environment and all these problems. And I think also the Animal Law Society is great here. It's connected to a lot of other organizations, and they're always hosting events, and you can meet other people who are really interested in animal law. And they also, like Professor Winters said, they have vegan Thanksgiving, which I really enjoy because I always have to cook for myself. And then in terms of the future, this summer, I'm going to be interning at Mercy for Animals and help them with their work on protections for farmed animals. And then I'm hoping to work in the farmed animal advocacy clinic for the fall. So I'm really enjoying my work with farmed animal law, but I'm also, there's so many opportunities here to explore like domestic animals, pets, wildlife. So it's really whatever you make of it, basically.
Thank you, Bailey. That's actually a great segue, because what I wanted to talk about next is some of the many, many things our alumni are doing. So although we just now formally launched the Animal Law and Policy Institute, our students have been doing animal law for a very long time. As a result, we have alumni who are leaders at the Animal Legal Defense Fund, Animal Outlook, the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the Center for Biological Diversity, Friends of Animals, the Humane Society of the United States, the PETA Foundation, Sea Shepherd, and it goes on and on and on. So this is an amazing network, because when you're thinking about where do I want to work, where do I maybe want to do an internship, you can tap into that alumni network. And they're willing to chat with students, even if you don't want to necessarily go work there. I put them in touch with students all the time, and they love it. It's like one of their favorite things to do. We also have alumni who are designated animal cruelty prosecutors, if that's something that you're interested in. We have alumni in other government offices, including in leadership roles in the Federal Department of the Interior. We have a number of alumni who are animal law professors, and we have some who have private practices completely dedicated to animal law. So There are a lot of ways to do this work, like I said earlier, and it can focus on a wide range of issues. We have students doing ocean law, companion animal law, farmed animal law, captive wildlife, wild wildlife, and much more. So we really pride ourselves on providing mentorship to our students to help them navigate these different potential pathways and figure out what's a good fit for them, and helping them tap into this incredible alumni network. So the last thing I wanted to mention before I hear your questions, which is really the most interesting part about this for me, is a few events that we have coming up. So I mentioned before, we have our Animal Law Society annual Animal Law Symposium coming up on March 25th, which will be virtual, although there is an in-person watch party with vegan pizza as well. And that's going to focus on bridging animal law and environmental law through two panels, one focused on climate impacts on farmed animals, and the other focused specifically on Lolita, a orca who has lived in the smallest orca tank in the world at the Miami Seaquarium for many years, and who I've done some work on behalf of, who is not doing well. And we will be bringing together lawyers, scientists, tribal members, and others who are leaders in doing this sort of advocacy work to talk about the relationship between animal law and environmental law through the lens of these two sort of case studies. The day after that, Saturday, March 26th, we have a virtual symposium that we're doing in partnership with our US-Asia partners for the US-Asia Partnerships for Environmental Law, along with a law professor in China who is publishing China's first ever animal law book on wildlife and welfare, animal protection law in theory and practice. And this event is targeted at Chinese, American, and international scholars and advocates in animal law to facilitate discussion around these issues. And I'm really, really, really excited to be doing this collaborative work in China, and excited about what we might build from this as a starting place. And then a couple months later in July, we are planning an event on animal law and restorative justice with our National Center on Restorative Justice. We have a master's in restorative justice. I teach a number of our Marge, we call it, students. They are also interested in animal law, as are our restorative justice faculty, and seeing what the synergies between these two fields are. And it's a topic that's just now starting to be discussed widely. And so we want to host some folks to explore the contours of it and then build from that. So that's just a little flavor of the types of things that we've got going on. And let's hear your questions and hopefully answer them.
If you all would like, if you want to post those questions in the Q&A, I can feed them to Delcy, or we can try and catch them in the chat. Delcy, what was one of the cases that really is kind of, when you think about it, it is like seeded why you are pursuing this passion?
Oh man, that's hard. There are so many, but and there's so many, and there's so many victories that I'm really proud of. Individual animals who I've helped get out of bad situations who are now thriving, and practices that we've stopped and facilities that we've shut down. So it's really hard to pick, but you're going to make me. And so I'm going to say Nosy, who again is behind me, because I dedicated a lot of time and resources, and I hired a former student and former clerk to focus specifically on Nosy's case, and it seemed intractable. For decades, she was held without the company of a single other elephant, even though we know elephants are extremely social animals. She was routinely chained such that she was unable to move. a whistleblower reported an incident in which she was beaten while she was chained and unable to move for a very long period of time. She was also suffering from really painful arthritis and an untreated skin condition. And we just over and over again tried to do everything we could. We met with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We met with Florida Wildlife Commission because her owners were based in Florida. And it went on for years. And so when I got a call from law enforcement in Alabama saying that they wanted to seize her and requesting some assistance, that was really important to me to be there for her. So it was my anniversary, and I told my husband that I was not going to be going to dinner and that he would need to take me to the airport and I would need to take a red eye to get to Alabama, and was finally able to see Nosy get to where she deserved to be. I mean, honestly, she deserved to be in the wild in Zimbabwe, where she was taken from after seeing her family killed in front of her in a government-sponsored cull. But we're doing the best that we can by her, given what has happened. So that's one that's really important to me, but there are a lot. And those victories keep me going because we don't always have victories. So it's important to pay attention to them.
Thank you. It is so true in environmental law and in animal law about holding on to the victories, because it can be heart-wrenching. All right, I have a question from Lauren Uram. How important is it to have an idea about what kind of animal law you want to do before entering law school?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I was getting distracted trying to look at the questions myself, which I'm going to not do. I'm going to rely on you, Katie.
I know, me too. And then I think Vanessa will be joining us shortly too. So I'm so excited to have a visit in the office. How important is it to have an idea about what kind of animal law you want to do before entering law school?
It's not important at all. Even if you think you have an idea, it's probably going to change. So that's what your time here is for, is to explore. And even after law school, you might change. I mean, I went to law school thinking I was going to do farm animal law. I started doing a mix, but really kind of ended up as an elephant law person, and then broadened that to captive wildlife, then switched gears back to farmed animal. So, I mean, no matter what legal field you're practicing in, the odds are good that you're going to change a bit, at least once. And so we don't expect you to know. How could you know? You haven't tried it. That's why we encourage you to do these, like the summer internship that's Bailey's doing, and try out clinics to get a test for not only the topic that you want to tackle within animal law, but also the type of law. Like, do you love litigating, or would you rather be lobbying? Or do you like being behind the scenes? Do you want to be a mediator? There are so many different ways to do it. And law school is an opportunity to experiment with that, but it also doesn't end with law school. There are also a growing number of fellowships in animal law, which allow you to further explore in that space.
Thank you. You're going to hear Vanessa and Simeon in a second. So it's really nice to have all the students back on campus and to have the vibrance. So again, I encourage you all to visit. Susanna has a question about how much of work-life balance were you able to have while litigating for animals? And I would love you to answer that. And then I want to flip it and also have Bailey answer how much of a work-life balance does she have while being in law school and very active in law school. So I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll go first.
You
want to go first, Bailey?
Yeah, I can go first. Yeah, I think honestly, I will say it's more of a work-life balance than I had in my job as a paralegal in immigration. I think coming from that, law school, especially the first year, if you're going to do a JD, I'm not sure with masters only, but with the JD, the first year, you really just focus on those first year classes. I think I definitely get sucked into my work sometimes, especially doing like the practicum now. It's hard not to get really interested by the subjects that you're working on and just delve into it. But I also think it's somewhat of a good thing that I'm so interested in what I'm doing, and I'm able to tailor all of the activities that I do engage in to what I'm interested in doing in the future. I do think it's still important to, get outside and take care of yourself. And we also do talk about that in our animal law classes. We usually have some discussions about different ways to deal with your mental health, especially because sometimes it can be frustrating working in animal law, and also some of the things that you see working in animal law can be kind of difficult. So we definitely discuss that and coping mechanisms and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm not great at work-life balance, but that's more a personal flaw. Of course, it makes it more challenging when you're doing work you really care about and you're passionate and driven by. So I mostly aspire to be a good role model for my students and to take care of myself so I can do this work for the long haul. And so this does tie into discussions of compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma, which Bailey was just mentioning. I do work into my classes because especially in the practicum setting, if you're actually working on these, and Bailey right now is reviewing hundreds of Humane Slaughter Act violations, like really horrifying stuff. And so we have to figure out how to take care of ourselves and be able to do this advocacy work without getting burnt out. So I have a regular yoga practice. I have a regular meditation practice. It's hard as a litigator because you're at the mercy of the court schedules. And so there are, if you choose the litigation pathway, that is a factor you should be aware of. And some people thrive on it and it drives them. Some people do it for a while and then decide they want to pursue a different pathway. But it can be challenging. And I think it's especially important as a litigator to make sure you're building in some mechanisms for work-life balance. But I try to expose the students to different readings and experts on this topic, because I think it's something we need to keep reminding ourselves about.
Thank you. Ashtanga? I practice Ashtanga yoga and I meditate in the morning too. It's really been life-changing. So from Maddie O'Rourke, I saw in the Brooks Animal Law Digest for the proposed EU regulation banning export for slaughter, and earlier you mentioned that in passing. What legislation are you working on here?
Yeah, so the work that we're doing around slaughter is actually more focused on not on export, but on slaughter in the United States and the US Department of Agriculture's ongoing efforts at the behest of industry to deregulate slaughter, including by removing speed limits on how quickly animals can be killed. So for example, for many years, there was a regulation in place that said you could not kill more than 1,106 pigs per hour. That's a lot of pigs. That's really fast. But the USDA has been, it's ongoing litigation. So the exact status of it changes from day to day, but basically removing that limit so that you can kill as many pigs as you want, as fast as you want. And that is dangerous for pigs because it means it's more likely that they're going to be violently handled by workers who are trying to keep pace. So they're dragging them, they're electroshocking them, they're beating them. It means it's more likely that pigs are not going to be rendered unconscious before their throats are slit. Sometimes even before they're dropped into scalding tanks intended to remove hair from dead pigs. Same is happening for chickens and for cattle. It's also harmful for workers. It poses more consumer protection risks because it's less likely that you will detect food safety concerns when you're going that fast. And the whole point of it is to increase the number of animals who are factory farmed and slaughtered overall. So the USDA announced that removing this speed limit would facilitate the raising and slaughtering of 11.5 million more pigs annually in the United States. So we're engaged in a wide range of efforts to challenge that. Some of it is supporting legislation. So Cory Booker has been a champion on a number of animal protection measures, probably most notably the Farm Systems Reform Act, but also the Safe Line Speeds and COVID Act, which would tackle this issue. But as with many advocacy things, we're tackling it on all fronts, including regulatory efforts and supporting litigation as well.
Wow, that's a lot.
Sorry, yeah, it's a lot.
No, I just
Should have had a warning.
Right. So we have a student who has a deep interest as an animal advocate. Do you find the court system extremely frustrating? Here in Connecticut, we just lost a high-profile case of 5 dogs that were starved to death.
It's frustrating. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's frustrating. I've lost on behalf of Lolita, the orca who I mentioned, twice in the Federal Court of Appeals. But it's better than not doing anything. And we do have victories. And when we have those victories, it's amazing. And even when we don't succeed in a case, we are accomplishing change by raising public awareness, by bringing information to light. So it can be very frustrating, and it, how much so depends on what type of work you decide to pursue, but probably no matter what it is, there's gonna be some frustration because you're trying to challenge deeply entrenched problems that the legal system needs to change in a lot of ways. So it's important to be prepared to deal with those frustrations and to remember to celebrate the victories. And so, yes, but it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Thank you. This is maybe more of a personal question than a professional one. Do you think we'll see the end of factory farming in our lifetime? I wonder if your work has made you more or less optimistic.
It's a great question. I've become more optimistic about factory farming in recent years because of the amazing coalition work that I've seen, because I've seen animal protection, environmental, worker safety, consumer protection, and other groups come together to fight this behemoth industry that harms everyone in its wake. And so I think we're realizing that we have to end it because the scope of the environmental destruction it's inflicting, including contributions to climate change, we can't keep doing it. And so I am optimistic. How quickly it will happen, not quickly enough, but hopefully during my lifetime. I think that is possible.
Oh, thank you. I know this is a partisan swing with controls and quality. So how can this be depoliticized?
Not certain I understand the question. I'm going to try and put an interpretation on it, but if my interpretation is inaccurate, maybe try to rephrase it so that I can answer it. So I think it's a question about partisanship within animal law. So animal law is actually a pretty bipartisan issue. Oh, sorry, this says it was tangent off my last question. So what was the preceding question?
The preceding question was about export, banning export for slaughter.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you. I'm still not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry, but I'm going to put my own interpretation on it, which will hopefully be a helpful response. Animal law is surprisingly bipartisan. We see co-sponsored bills in animal law, even in this incredibly polarized era that we're in right now. So I think it is an issue that is less politicized than others. The particular issue, there may be more or less, but I think there is recognition that people on all sides of the political spectrum care about animals. Indeed, most people do when polled, and most people do not agree with the lack of legal protections that animals currently receive.
Thank you. What are the top ways Everyday people can help change laws in their state to protect farm animals and game animals. In Pennsylvania, every member on the Game Commission is male and a hunter. That doesn't seem to have the best interests of the birds and the other animals that are hunted in my state. In other words, there seems to be no balance here. None of the board members have degrees in animal science, evolution, education. How can we change this?
Get a law degree or a policy master's degree and then go back to your community and change it. That's not totally a flip answer. I mean, I think that is the best thing you can do, is to learn those systems and learn how to play the game so that you can go in and turn things upside down. So I don't know off the top of my head Pennsylvania's laws specifically like that. There are requirements that they be fairly balanced, and there is a track record of not complying with those requirements, and oftentimes they simply haven't been called to account. So I was actually just nominated by a broad coalition of groups to a federal advisory committee on meat and poultry slaughter. And that's part of an effort to point out that this is not complying with the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which requires fair balance in the committees. So I think there are tremendous opportunities. I think you're thinking about the right pathways and, making sure they're complying with the Open Meetings Act and representation requirements. I also think there's often overlooked potential at the local level. I think some of the most significant strides we've made for animals in recent years have been at the local level, whether that's bans on bullhooks, the weapons used on elephants, bans on traveling wild animal acts, bans on retail sales of pets, or other local pathways. So I think there's a lot of potential, and getting a law degree or a policy degree, which is a little quicker, or both, is a great way to arm yourself to be able to take on that work.
Thank you. How difficult is it to get a job in animal law, and how can we best set ourselves up for that? I know, right?
It's easier than it's ever been. It's a growing field, and it's a rapidly growing field, but that's not to say it's easy. It is still challenging. And so I think doing the best that you can in law school, getting a strong, broad education is really important. Being just a good advocate, a good researcher, a good writer, that's really key. And also networks. This is still a pretty small field, despite its rapid rate of growth. Most of us know each other. And so being able to tap into those networks, including our alumni network, all those leaders at all those organizations and others that I mentioned. And I encourage folks to get involved in things like the American Bar Association Animal Law section, which I know Bailey is one of the many things Bailey is doing. So those would be my top recommendations.
Thank you. The questions keep coming in, and I hope you don't mind. How can we get past rulings that animal cruelty isn't relevant to cases, or that the animals / their advocates don't have standing? It's so frustrating that our laws seem to set up to exclude non-human animals.
We have to keep coming up with the new theories and testing them and pushing the boundaries. And I'll just give you one example of one of our alumni, Will Lowry, who's currently at Animal Outlook. He just got a huge victory in a Pennsylvania Court of Appeals, where Animal Outlook had done an undercover investigation at a dairy farm, documented some pretty horrific abuse, presented it to the prosecutor. Prosecutor declined to take action, said that, well, we have this, farming exemption in the cruelty law, therefore we're not going to prosecute. And Will figured out this unique provision in Pennsylvania law that allows you to challenge a prosecutor's decision not to pursue a case. They filed suit. They lost at the trial court level, but he argued it on appeal. I helped moot him, and he just got an amazing decision that not only is going to require the prosecutor to revisit this, but calls into question the reliance on that farming exemption, which is really significant. So it takes hard work. It takes study, figuring out. I mean, in virtually every case I've done, we've had to have a fight over standing, but we usually do win. We've figured out how to do it, and we've figured out how to extend the precedent. So through hard work, basically.
Hard work and dedication. Okay, so I'm going to put Vanessa on the spot. Vanessa, my live audience member. Vanessa, do you have a question for Professor Winters?
I wasn't prepared with a question, but I'm really excited to learn more and watch the beginning of this webinar. I just did a tour of Vermont Law School campus, and really what is interesting to me is the animal law program. And Delciana, I've been reading all about you and your publications, so I'm really excited to get to know you and get to learn more about the program. I'm not sure if you can hear me because I have a mask on.
I can hear you great. I'm excited to get to know you. And you reminded me that when we were asked about work-life balance, I wanted to mention the stunning beauty that is Vermont. It's incredible. So there's so much stuff to do outdoors here, and we're in this amazing, I would say, idyllic setting, and we're surrounded by wildlife. Every day in my yard, I see tracks of like 5 different kinds of animals. Within my first month here, I saw a bear cub, I saw a porcupine. It's a really special place. And I think being that connected to the wildlife and the natural environment can help sustain you as well.
Thank
And I'll
you.
go ahead. Oh, sorry, Katie.
No, please, Delcy.
I was just going to jump on. I saw that Catherine Gott mentioned Protect Our Wildlife's efforts around the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Board. So yeah, we have been doing some work with Protect Our Wildlife, and we're actually, if they've got a few bills currently pending, and if those get to a hearing, we're planning to send some students to testify in support of them.
Catherine also, she's working full time. Catherine, 2 things. The Animal Masters, help me out, Masters Animal Protection Policy, right? I'm like,
Yes. Sorry,
yes.
I was muted. Yes.
It's going to be online too. So you can work and do that program online. And we're waiting to hear if our hybrid JD, which will be an online JD program, will launch. We should hear soon from the American Bar Association. So Catherine, it's never too late. And you can.
A lot of our students work.
Yeah. All right. Is there any more questions? Did you think of anything? All right. All right. Bailey lives across the street.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Kate Chanley is in admissions. So Kate, thank you for running behind the scenes and making sure we ran smoothly this evening. Laura, thank you for setting up everyone. Bailey, thank you for studying so hard and really being an advocate already. And then of course, Delcy, thank you for this evening and all your wonderful work. If anyone has any questions, I think everyone's popping their emails, and feel free to reach out to us. And thank you all for having this concern, because of you, this what Delcy's working on, what Bailey's working on, what Vanessa's going to work on is going to move forward. And the more of you that do it, the bigger chance we have to make a change. All right. I thank you. All right. Have a good day.
And Vanessa, if you're around, if you want to come by my office.
Are you, can we
I'll hang out. Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like,
bye everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.